I usually talk about change, and I really feel like what I want to talk about increasingly is not change so much as those who lead change, those who, through their examples, don't control and command, but inspire. I am not a motivational speaker. We talked about this at dinner last night. Motivation, when you think about it, really has to do with fear. Either you're trying to motivate yourself to overcome some fearful obstacle, or someone's trying to get you to be motivated to help them overcome their fearful obstacle. What I believe I hopefully can do in the time we have is inspire. Because inspiration is very different. An inspirational leader tells a story about his or her past, tells a story of others, and creates a different sense of possibility. And so we inspire, we breathe in together and say, what could we aspire toward? That's what I want to talk about. And when you really think about what matters to you, what really matters to you? And that's what leaders know. This whole talk is based upon one very simple comment that I got from I was working for United Airlines giving some presentations, and this high-ranking official said to me, you know what? We're only as good leaders as we are people. But I knew there was some coincidence here, and I didn't know what it was, but it became obvious that Lydia was supposed to be in my life. There was some sort of teaching going on. It wasn't until the day she got out a pencil and paper and began to draw this circle. I said, my gosh, that's the same circle I've seen throughout the world I've traveled, from Tibet to Nepal, the world. And she said, well, it's what she learned growing up as an Indian lass in southern Mexico. She said, it's called the circle of life. And she described what it was. And that's what our talk's really about. She said, the East, she said, this represents the soaring hawk, the vision of the eagle. It sees no fences, no barriers. You have to have a vision. That's what Jeff said. You have to have a vision to be a leader. She said, the South is energy. To inspire others, we have to have a sense of vigor. The South, the totem of the South is always the mouse, or some animal that can't see that far, but has a sense of enthusiasm and vitality. This is the South. The West, said Lydia, is the going within. It's the sense of knowing who you are. And finally, when she said North, she touched her gray hair and said, it's finally when you know what really matters. So this is the model I want to share with you. What's fascinating is in South America, it exists the same. Of course, it's reversed, where the South is the wisdom and the North is the energy, because that's where the equator lies. But in many, many cultures, we find the same paradigm. And my suspicion is this. It is transpersonal anthropology we're discovering, that beneath the veneer of culture lie basic truths that, if we master, offer us the chance to not only become the leaders, but to maintain that leadership over time. So let me tell you 4 stories about traveling those 4 directions and ask you how they might pertain to your life. Now, I must apologize. I have no stories about you. I have no slides of you. But I suspect this, the things that I have most profoundly true in my life are probably not dissimilar to your truths. The faces and names might be different, but the truths remain the same. Pedro was a phenomenal character, vital and alive, and you have to understand they had never brought anyone else to their village. The outsiders, the men, had actually gone to trade, but when you arrived at the village, you realized you had gone back in time. I was the first outsider to ever set foot in this world, unchanged since ancient Mayan times. And what I began to realize was I had found what I was after. I'm not an anthropologist, archaeologist. I'm a cultural anthropologist. Some of you may have seen Mel Gibson movie. What was it called? Apocalypto? You know, what interests me is not so much the ruins, but who lived in those ruins. I don't think they were as warlike as they were shown. In fact, what our beliefs are from deciphering the Mayan hieroglyphs is they lived 100 times longer as peaceful hunters and gatherers than they did as warlike tribes. So here I was discovering that I was walking into history. This is what the women wore. This is the same outfit that the women wore when the Spanish first arrived, the mantillas. They thought it was the hottest fashion going. Yeah, like from 1670. This was a non-go-to-meeting sort of day. And what I found, this is sort of the punchline of the story, is that these were the kindest, most gentle people I'd ever met. It was like living among deer. They had no sense of irony or cynicism, virtually no fear. They had lived in a world that had gone unchanged for millennia. And their world was very kind and very gracious. We danced, we laughed, we told stories. I played my harmonica poorly, and we danced that we made up on the spot. And one day I said to Pedro, I said, you know, you live in this remarkable world. And it's a challenging world. It's not easy. There's a lot of poverty. He didn't know that word. And how do you maintain your sense of happiness? And he looked at me and he said something which was profound for me. He said, "Somos vivos," which means we are alive. It also means we are lively. And that's what I began to realize. We have lived 9 times longer as hunters and gatherers than we have as civilized people. What is the actual truth of being human? I think it's not getting our news from TV and sitting around the television and reading the newspaper. It's sitting around campfires and telling ourselves not the bad news, but the good news. These people, when they work, they hunt, they fish, they run. In their free time, they hang out and tell stories. If we're lucky, in our work time, we go hunting and fishing, and of course, tell a few stories. So the question I want to ask us, are we living lives as the lives should be lived? How alive are we? Are we doing the things we need to do to present the kind of energy we need to those who we lead, so they can see through our eyes who they might be? And that's the first question. If we're going to be leaders from the inside out, do we take time to do the things that we know bring us the life that is life we can live? How vivos are we? I traveled to Tibet. And here I knew if I traveled to Tibet, I might begin to find that next step of mine, which was to find that sense of inner worth, inner being. Because Tibet's been known forever as the place of going within. The mountains of Tibet are enormous, but it was the people of Tibet I wanted to meet. Because the Tibetans themselves invented wheels long ago, not for chariots of war, but as a way of looking inward, as an inward technology. So this story is kind of fun in that I'm now traveling through Tibet, and I'm going to places no one's supposed to go. And this presents a problem because the Chinese police will obviously take you and send you back where you came from. And I learned a very important lesson, which is when they arrest you, simply tell them that you're going where you've been and you've been where you're going. So when they arrest you, they say, "Where have you been?" They send you back where you want to go. And it works out really well for everybody. So I'm on this bus, see, and it's not a really good bus, but it's a fun bus, and it's full of monks and yak herders. And we're now on this bus, and this guy next to me, we're going across Tibet for days, is a monk. And I don't know his name, but he's sitting there smiling at me for day after day after day, and nothing is ever said. Finally, one day, our bus runs into an obstacle. It's a snowstorm, middle of nowhere. And I grab my stuff. I'm about to leave the bus. And this fellow's name was Tenzing, Lama Tenzing. And he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Where am I going? You speak English?" He says, "Yes." He had been raised in Darjeeling. I said, "Why didn't you talk to me for the last few days?" He said, "Well, there was nothing to say." I said, "Well, great." I said, I'm looking. And he said to me, "You're looking for Shangri-La." I said, "Yes." Now, Shangri-La, if you don't know this, is a word that comes from Shambhala, which the Shangri-La word comes from James Hilton's book, Lost Horizons. Shambhala is the myth of Tibet, that somewhere in this world there lies a place where all people are good and all wisdom is eternal and you can live forever. But it's a place of enlightenment. So I said to him, "Yes, I'm looking for Shambhala." And he looked at me and he said, "You can look long, but you must not look far." I said, "Well, thank you very much. I'm out of here." I grabbed my pack and my Tibetan disguise, because, again, this is where you're not supposed to be, and I head off into the wilderness, hoping at some point that I will be able to find some horses, and I will now ride among the ancient Tibetans looking for Shangri-La. About the second or third day out, I was able to find some small horses that I bought for some small change, which could cover some small distances. Now, these horses look great, but this is actually larger than life. In truth, these horses were so small that when I was sitting on them, my feet kind of touched the ground, which was good because I couldn't really fall over, but I couldn't cover much territory. And the funny story about this is that the Chinese police are now after me. And they had these little jeeps. So now they're driving along in these jeeps, chasing me and my little tiny horse.